Good morning, Berks County. I'm Patti Rentschler, and welcome to this morning's edition of Work at Wellness, Wellness at Work. This is the beginning of our second season here on BCTV, and we're glad to be able to continue to bring you the things about wellness that we think matter to you, and some suggestions for how you might have wellness in your personal life and also in the workplace, because a lot of us spend an awful lot of time there. Last month we talked a little bit, we began a discussion about spirituality and wellness, and we know right now that there are a lot of people that are searching for a lot of things. There's a lot in the media. There are magazine covers about prayer in the hospitals. There are TV shows, the Revelations that was just on there. A lot of talk. Even back in 2000, at the beginning of the millennium, it's the end of the world. So in a way that has not happened in recent history, we are now seeing a resurgence of people who are bringing kind of spirituality to the forefront of their minds, and that is likening itself and lending itself to a search. And not everybody's real clear about where to start. Many people have abandoned the church teachings that they grew up with. Just too many rules. And last month we had a discussion with Diane Sunai-Seaman, who we've had here before, who is a psychologist, and we talked about the issue of spirituality, particularly women in spirituality. And she had a lot of things to say about the impact of women in the churches, in religion, and the impact that the churches have had on a lot of women's lives, and talked about the individual search for spirituality. So we talked a lot about that. In recent times, particularly with the information about the Pope and all of the coverage of the Pope's death, a lot of people had a lot of comment about the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church has taken quite a bit of a hit lately in the media in a lot of ways. And at the same time, there's been an awful lot of people who have been exposed to the Catholic Church for the first time, the wonderful things, the wonderful spirituality about it with the coverage of the Pope's death. So we thought it was only fitting at this time to get the perspective from someone who is involved with the Catholic Church in a big way. I had the extraordinary privilege not too long ago of sitting down with one of our local priests from St. Margaret's Parish. I had a chance to talk with Father John Gibbons. I visited the parish, and this is it's a terrible day here in Berks County today, but it was a beautiful day. The flowers were perfect. And we went over to St. Margaret's, and we sat with Father Gibbons, and I wanted to talk with him about some of the criticism of the Catholic Church. And we also brought up this business of the Da Vinci Code. We talked about that. It seems as though no matter what the church has been teaching and the different information that's been available, somebody writes a book in Hollywood and all of a sudden people believe things. And we talked a little bit about that, and he had an interesting perspective on the Da Vinci Code. But the questions that we're going to cover today are some of the things that we're all asking.
That whole idea of people searching and how do you come to know truth? We have so many ideas now. Well, how do you know what is true? And so right now, what is operative is what is possible is truth. You know, whatever is possible. You know, we know the commercial, master the possibilities, that the world is full of possibilities. And actually, you know, the process of life is moving from possibility to what is.
How do you make that transition, though, when people are feeling helpless, desperate? In our community alone, we've had people that lives are going along just fine, kids ready to go to college. Job moves out of town.
Yeah.
I mean, in a time when how do you get from that? And how do you get from knowing that there are some possibilities, but getting past
possibilities to
what
a way? Yeah.
It's
making a choice. It's coming to understand beyond our own ideas or opinions. Once you set up that if anything is possible, then therefore it's true, then you can set up a good book about Jesus and his family. And actually, the real story is he didn't go to Europe. They took a boat, and they actually have a house in Barnegat Bay, Long Beach Island. I don't know if you...
I see, just during the season.
Well, here's the... I just think that if you don't know the basics...
Right.
Then
of the story.
if you don't know basics of anything...
Okay.
If anyone suggests possibilities that sound logical, you can't exclude them because you don't know the basic facts.
Right.
And if you don't use that basic premise that there's people who have been around 2,000 years, not just buying a company line, but really trying to understand what is truth and how does God become real in the world, and how that really happens. There have been people that have been trying to live that and understand that for 2,000 years. And as soon as if you say, well, just put that aside and just see what I think myself, then everything is possible.
So in the search, when you're actually trying to find some things, a lot of people right now are doing our Reading Eagle had a story on this not long ago, and people are church shopping, for lack of a better word. That's what it's being called. Kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So the question, one of the things that we talked about was whether or not do your beliefs dictate where you go to worship? In other words, I believe this much, and this church believes this, and I can deal with that. That's part of something I can embrace. So this will be my church. The other part of it is, like we said, if you don't have any background, if you have no early indoctrination, no early training, you are going to be susceptible to a book that comes out of Hollywood, even more so than you would out of going to a place of worship or going into a structured religion. While the individual spiritual searches are happening with people, I asked Father Gibbons what the difference is between this very individual spirituality, this sort of direct line to God, and I don't really need to go to church, and I don't really need the rules, and the actual participation and the belonging in being in a church family. So this is what he had to say about that. What do you give up by trying to Chinese menu your faith?
Yeah. Well,
what is the case for church?
The world of possibilities is crucified, really. And what happens is that when you live if you live in the world of possibility, then you have to give up all those things. And the toughest thing in our life, as we all know, is just how to know what to let go by and what to grab onto.
Yeah.
And what.
And how do you know?
Through experience, through understanding, through knowledge, through our own life, through people who have been on the path and are sincerely trying to follow the truth. As you said, there's always any good spirituality. There's going to be two sides of it. It's individual, and it's communal. You know, that's as Christians we believe. You know, first the individual, myself, and God is that relationship that way, and then how we relate to each other, how we love each other, is more across with each other, right? Horizontal. And so, as Christians, obviously, you know, that's where they meet, right?
There you go.
There we go. So that whole idea of where they meet is where we find truth, and that's what we're saying, that there are communal dimensions and there are individual dimensions, and people. The focus right now is that spirituality is it's myself and God. It's myself and God, and kind of put everything else aside. And we can understand that because the world's a wreck, and none of us are perfect. And the church itself, we say we are a community of saints and sinners. And so how to continue with something that isn't perfect like God is, that's why it's excluded. In the past, it's been. Don't worry about yourself and God. Just buy it. Whatever's going on in the community, just do it. So there's two aspects of spirituality. It's always going to be individual and communal. You know, we say that's where the two meet in the cross, and that's we believe as Catholic Christians, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's the three individuals, 100% God, but at the same time, each one of them, 100% together. They make up 100%. That's the central mystery of ourselves, and to relate to that always is going to have to involve both aspects of ourselves as people and ourselves as community.
One of the other issues that has come up a number of times in the clergy, particularly in the Catholic Church, these rules are just antiquated. These are just not rules that work in a modern society. Why don't we have any priests? We don't have any priests because, you know, if we let them get married, there would be some more priests. If it wasn't so restrictive, more people would be involved in the church. We had a discussion about about these rules and about the roles of women in church and a lot of different things when we talked about this last month. One of the things that I really wanted to know from Father Gibbons particularly was what his thought was about this idea of marriage. Just, we started with that one, and I very pointedly asked him, you know, would you get married? And here's what he had to say.
I would like to marry, but I don't think I could be married and be a good priest at the same time. After having been a priest for 16 years, I don't see how you can do both.
It is, I guess, it is a marriage. That is your marriage.
According so many things that do happen that it's trying to do two things at once, I think. Yeah. I think the other churches that do have married clergy, they also have problems with not enough people becoming ministers or priests or
so that's not
or
really
reverends.
That's not the breaking point. Or that's not
it's not answering the problem. I think that whole idea too. Basically, in a family, there's always someone in the family that says, "Okay, listen, I'll be the one to do it." And I think we all want to share it. We all want to say, "Well, everyone does their part." Basically, there's usually one person who kind of is able to be there, and I see it in terms of family that way. That it's the priest who was saying, I can be available,
right.
and
you have to be, no matter what.
Yeah.
There are times when only the priest will do.
Yeah. I would like to be married, but I just don't think it's possible. I don't think you could do both.
When you start to look for information, when you start your search, and there are a number of things that may generate your search, and again, we're talking about this issue of spirituality and wellness here in our own community, because there are resources here, there is an awareness here, and there are a number of ways that if you are beginning this search, that there are people and there are organizations that can help you. The question that a lot of people start with is, where do I start? Where if I want to understand, if I want to become a Christian, if I want to become a member of a church, where do I start? We started to discuss the idea of who do you believe? I mean, who do you believe? Where are the rules? And essentially it came down to the very basic question. We've had a book that's been around here for 2,000 years. There are many, many people, many religions and many individuals who believe that the Bible is absolutely a rule book for life and that all your answers are in there, all of the questions are in there, and anything you need to be concerned with is in there, as well as a prediction and a pretty, without committing to timing, a pretty good indicator of what things are going to happen. One of the recent, this miniseries that was on TV, Revelations, basically said Christ is here, the Antichrist is here, and there's a battle. There's a battle going on, and you have to choose a side. When I sat down with Father Gibbons, one of the things that I wanted to ask him was, did he believe that the answers were in the Bible, that the answers to our questions are in the Bible? Here's what he had to say.
The Bible's an important place.
Are the answers in there?
They are. They are. Not like a cookbook. Well, I want to bake this cake, so I'll look and get these things.
In Social and Security, page 45.
Yeah, there are. The Bible does help us with our problems of loneliness, of fear, of relationships, daily problems, compulsions, addictions, peace, lack thereof, all the questions that we have.